I'm very excited to be here with Berta Pappenheim, who is founder of the Cyberfish Company. The Cyberfish Company is part of the GCHQ Accelerator program, and they've got a really interesting take on cybersecurity awareness. So thanks for coming in to speak with us.
Yeah, thanks for asking me to talk to you. It's a pleasure.
Good. Well, I'm very excited. I think you can probably tell us about your company a little bit better than I can. So tell us what you're doing that's different.
My background is in behavioral sciences. I have a degree in behavioral sciences, and I worked as an organizational psychologist for 10 years. So I look at the problem of human error and cybersecurity awareness from a very different perspective. I think most of the companies who are in the cyber awareness scene, they're looking at the problem as a technical problem, and I'm looking at it as a human problem that could be predicted and that could be avoided through addressing it via the behavioral side.
I think that's such a different take on things. It must be why things are going very well for you.
Yes, definitely. It's something new, and I think the industry is really tired dealing with the same problem over and over again, and we're bringing in a new angle, so that's quite popular actually.
Good, I'm glad to hear it. So does the behavioural angle, does it speak to employees differently? Are people really buying into this?
It puts the problem of cyber awareness and digital risk in a new sort of perspective, and people sympathize with this new angle because they see themselves not just as part of the company, but also as a human, as someone who has a family and who would want to protect their own data. So if someone clicks on a phishing link in a corporate environment, that's really bad for the corporate, but also it can happen in someone's personal life. And having that understanding of protecting them, making people smarter online, it really strikes a chord with the average user.
I think that's such a great angle as well, you know, coming at it from we're looking after you as employees as well as just we're trying to protect ourselves and we're going to punish you for doing the wrong thing.
Exactly. It's strengthening the psychological contract between the employees and the employers. It's instead of going after the ones who have clicked on the link and sort of selecting them or singling them out, we're trying to increase their awareness of the issues that they might be neglecting or they might not be aware of. Because if you think about it, lots of cybersecurity people click on the wrong links. It's not just a technical problem. They must understand it. I think it has more to do with how precise people are, the ability to spot mistakes in a URL, for example. And some people just don't have that eye for detail. They don't really have an attention for detail. So we're trying to identify things like that and coming to the problem from a different approach, and trying to raise awareness, as in, if you don't have those positive attitudes, positive behaviors, that could have XYZ consequences on your online, your digital world.
So are there certain personalities or certain people with certain behaviours that are more susceptible to these sort of things?
We have identified that there's a very strong link between cyber hygiene routines and conscientiousness. I think that's a no-brainer, to me at least. And then there's a couple of other behaviors that we've identified that have a strong link with other cyber threats and other digital exposure. But basically the problem is that in an increasingly connected world, our behavior changes online, and we have a limited understanding of how does this change happen. We know that in an online world, our behavior gets accelerated, amplified. We get through to people that we couldn't have imagined. We get to talk to audiences that was unimaginable before. So that really has an accelerating effect on certain behaviors. Our judgment is also something that gets impaired online. Your judgment doesn't work the same way that it does in the real world.
Okay, that's really fascinating. That might sound really obvious, but actually it's not something I've considered.
Because you could be sitting in your living room and just browsing your iPad. You could have your family around you, and you could have this false sense of safety online. that you're in a safe environment, but actually you could be browsing some pretty dangerous website somewhere around the globe that it just doesn't feel risky, and I think people struggle with this sense of judgment that gets distorted and gets it's just there's lots of new rules that apply in a digital world, and we don't really understand yet how to train people, but that's something that the Cyberfish company is intent on doing, understanding digital intelligence and how we can help people make better decisions online and understand the digital world from the perspective of protecting themselves, protecting their companies, but also their personal lives as well.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I'm unsure how we fix is that technology is moving so fast. You know, we're talking about deep fakes and voice phishing and really advanced things that I'm sure I would fall for right now. So how can we help people keep up with those advances when we're still trying to train people on quite basic things?
Exactly, and that's why I think our approach is a bit more. It will stand the test of time because it's not based on the actual attack vector or the attack technique. It's based on the behaviors that these techniques are exploiting. So deep fakes are sort of using the same trick as the old Nigerian scams. They're going for your suspectability. They're going for people who can't really understand. And it will be something that people will figure out in a while. But if you're prone to getting influenced easily by subjective information, then you're more likely to believe and then spread fake news as well. Mm-hmm. And then there will be a new threat that will exploit something else, but it will be around the same lines. They will call it differently.
Yeah. Well, that's a great answer, I think. Now, we've mentioned you're part of the GCHQ Accelerator. So what's that been like? What has that done for you?
We've been based in Cheltenham for a month now, and it's amazing meeting all these people. We have lots of mentors, lots of access to technical people, but also from the perspective of developing the business. We're working with large international companies who help us scale the products and the services. Mm-hmm.
And I understand it's quite hard to get into this particular accelerator, so there must be something in there that they particularly like.
They were very interested in the behavioral aspects of our platform, and I think there's lots of synergies between what we're trying to do, educating the users and making sure that people understand the risk of their actions online, and what the NCSC is doing, educating, making the UK a more secure place to do business, but also to live in.
Well, yes, because there's a lot of people that maybe aren't in businesses, aren't employed, that are equally at risk, I suppose.
Exactly.
Amazing. Well, it sounds like everything's going quite well for the company at the moment. So do you have plans to scale and get bigger over the next year or further afield?
Absolutely. We're very intent in growing the company from a global perspective, because I think there will be major differences in terms of the behaviors we're looking at and the way that we can address different issues in different continents. And I think the real powerful element of the tool will be when it's going to be a global tool used by multinational companies in a way that they can actually scale it down to their respective regions.
So that's really fascinating. You think different countries will exhibit different behaviours, different attitudes to risk, maybe?
Absolutely. I've lived in many countries, and I think there will be lots of local, unique approaches to understanding risk and facing risk and taking risk, and understanding the consequences of those actions will be also different, and varying interest in following processes maybe. Mm-hmm. I'm really passionate about these things, and I can't wait to see how the research will actually come together. Probably at the end of this year. We're closing some really interesting deals at the moment, so watch this space.
Oh, well, fingers crossed for you. You'll have
you.
to tell me which countries do things differently. Do we see, in phishing attempts now, do we see different attempts used for different countries? I know some people say urgency is a big factor.
Mm-hmm.
Some people say credibility is a big factor in what actually makes someone click. Do we see that already?
I know that in Brazil, for example, it's very new to send actual mails instead of emails, and with you have to type in the phishing link to your browser, and you actually do that instead of sending emails. The cyber criminals understood that this is a more credible way of getting through to someone. They will obviously brand it nicely and have the right logos on the paper, but that's something new, I think, in that part of the world. And I think in the UK, the smishing is much more powerful at the moment. I get 5 smishing messages on my phone almost every day. There's one.
Yes.
I think it's really catching up.
And some of that is very scary, the way it appears in your phone, the way it seems to have the right information.
Yes, no, it's very well designed and very well delivered.
And it's getting cheaper as well, right? It's
Yeah.
easier for people to attack us in this way.
Yes, it's scalable.
Well, I think that's been really, really fascinating. Thank you for talking to us on that. And I think we're all going to be very excited to see what you come up with as we go into next year.
Thank you.